Rock on.
Yeah, baby.
Special Thursday edition of Lunch with Adam and Ben. We couldn't pull off the whiteboard this week because, in typical over our skis fashion, we tried to slam something into a short week. Meanwhile, we remembered that we're in the client services industry, and that means everybody else wants to get everything done in a 3.5-day week too.
I think it also, to humble brag, speaks well to just our level of self-awareness, knowing that mentally, not so much.
So at what point do you check out on a week like this? Which is weird because the 3rd of July was never a federal holiday until like this year, right? So at what point do you like actually check out?
Like me personally?
Mm-hmm.
I had a gut feeling like 12:30 tomorrow.
Yeah.
I know there's a handful of stuff that I gotta get done. And pretty much as soon as that's done, I'm out of here. It's going to be so nice too. Like, whoa.
You know what's nice about it? I like it when the rest of the world stops. Like there's a forced model for it. What's really hard, especially in this business now, kind of making my pivot 3 years ago, is like when I owned the distillery, like if I took a day off, I didn't feel too bad about it. Like it was like, all right, whatever, as long as your distributors are happy, as long as your key accounts were happy. But now it's like, man, even if it's like 2 or 3 hours, like I'm always kind of being constantly pulled. Like if I try to take like a random Tuesday or a Wednesday off or an afternoon off, it's like, oh man, I could just feel my phone like burning right here. And that's really tough. So it's going to be like days like tomorrow and then certainly over the weekend where I'm just going to be like totally will be able to unplug because the rest of the world can unplug. Do you feel the same way when it comes to that stuff?
I used to struggle with that real bad. Like real bad, to the point where like my friends would just routinely yell at me because even if I was off, I was never off.
Yep.
But I just, I'm gonna be 32 this summer, man. Like I'm getting up there in age. I'm kind of like a grown up now, and you just at this point, you just like I think I've gotten a lot better at communicating up front with people, and B, it's just like, just shut up. Like you're not that important. Like if somebody goes without you for a day, like the world's not going to crash and burn. Like you're not as big a deal as you think you are. Just stop. And I've been really good at drinking my own Kool-Aid on that. And like, it's just like, like and like also too, like, what you have to get done. Like have to get done, like client work, like you're not like shortchanging anybody. So like once you check those boxes, like just live your life,
So what you're telling me is I'm not that big of a deal as I think I am. Is that what I'm hearing?
You are not nearly as important as I tell you are sometimes.
I'll take that. That.
And the other thing too is that you start to learn after a while that like I think we talked about it maybe episode 1, episode 2, like a lot of times you don't realize you need the break until you take it. And like, I just know, like, I was like, even like Monday, Tuesday this week, like my attitude was slipping and I was complaining about stuff, which like, I just don't do.
Yeah.
So like, it kind of like clicked to me like, all right, Junior, like maybe you need a timeout. So I think it'll be good for me. And like, that's the other thing. If it's good for me, it's good for like our team and our friends and our clients and everybody. So
what are you most looking forward to in a COVID era 4th of July weekend?
Everything. Everything. Well, so here's the thing, man.
Me too, by the way.
The Redneck Yacht Club is a beautiful place. That's what I've dubbed the lake where we got our spot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like naturally socially distanced, but like your people that are going to be there, like your close people anyway. We have some very special people coming down, so life's going to be good. Emma, who's watching on Instagram, bought me this really nice bald eagle American flag bandana shirt that I'm going to wear.
Nice.
Some cutoff jorts maybe. So life is just going to be good across the board.
So you're too young to remember this, but back in the 80s, there was I'm big into board shorts. That's just, how I like to roll on the boat, especially on the boat. But there was a brand back in Dave, Ange, David, Ben, Kevin, and our girl Simone watching. Thanks for checking in, everybody. There was a brand back in the mid to late 80s. They were board shorts. Now, they'd be called like men's capris these days, so I have to be careful about how I describe these. But
Right, it already.
they were called Jams, the original Jams.
With
And
a Z?
what's that?
With a Z?
No, Jams. So just Jams. I think I just put too much emphasis on the S. It's like that. It's like the what is that? Cool Whip. You're putting too much emphasis on the H.
Cool Whip.
Cool Whip. No, these are Jams shorts, and Jams were basically like shorts / swim trunks, but they went down past the knee, like mid calf, and they were like super like Ocean Pacific, like Miami Vice, hot blues, hot pinks, and I still remember to this day they had like a little patch that said original Jams on them. So I'm scrolling through Instagram last night, and by the way, whatever you do not Google like bird dog shorts, or you know what I'm talking about, like those built-in underwear shorts. Do not Google any of those things, because the moment you do that, every other Instagram story is another bro style bird dog short with the interior interior underwear. So I've been looking for Jams. That's been my wormhole this week between 10:30 and 11:30 at night before I go to bed. I want to find an original style of Jams to rock on the boat. I haven't found him yet. So if anybody watching or knows about the original Jams, I would love to find some, please.
Did those shorts like come with frosted tips, or was that sold separately?
Hey, have you seen? No, I don't have my. My wedding album's right over there. I could show you the frosted tips. Did I ever show you that picture?
I don't think so.
All right, hang on. I'll leave you with a question. So, influencer marketing with our friends Raymores. We've already sold a bunch of kegs this morning from my one post. How could you best leverage influencer marketing, and how can we as a team, meaning Raymores and myself, do a little bit better? I'll be back.
You're welcome for this picture, by the way, Facebook. It's going to be magical.
All right, so check this out. What do we call this? We call this our paparazzi picture.
Yo, Backstreet's back.
Backstreet's back. All right. There it is. How'd you know I had the frosted tips? I didn't even know you back then.
Just a lucky guess, man.
Tim, Josh, Brian, and Brian. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. How do brands, we talk a lot about COVID. We talk a lot about the 4th of July. What brands have you seen are doing it well during this time? How can people translate? How can people market themselves during COVID, during the 4th of July? See, I told you, and you've seen these pictures. Don't act like you haven't seen these pictures before.
I may or may not have a link to eBay Jam shorts for you too on Instagram.
I'm going to purchase Jam shorts while we're on the show today. I don't even care. I'm going to get them overnighted and on the boat by this weekend.
You better believe I'm going to walk over to Boscov's and find the brightest neon shorts I can find.
I got my pink shorts already. They are hot pink. They are ready to go.
We're going to match them, baby.
How can people document what they do this weekend and eventually build relationships and build trust in whatever they're selling, the service or product during this weekend?
So I think it's everything. So even to tie in influencer, which I think we could talk about a little deeper too. I think the beauty about all of this stuff is that for as much as things change and how new some of this stuff can be and how some of the tough, like the answers are,
yep.
When you boil it down, it's just the most simple concept that exists. It's just, relationship building. That's all it is. It's giving people something to connect to, so guess what? Like we just talked about ad hoc for like the first 4 minutes. What are we doing in a COVID era 4th of July? The same stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's what you do when you document this kind of stuff. Just show that you are a person going through the same kind of stuff as whoever you're trying to sell your product, your service, your whatever to.
Mm-hmm.
That's the baseline of it. You know what I mean? Like and like that was the answer before COVID. That was the answer during all of the shutdown and the hashtag uncertain times of everything. And it's the answer as we're coming out of it. And it's going to be the answer 10 years from now. You know, we get too carried away sometimes with these new platforms and these new tactics and all this kind of stuff. And even like influencer marketing, everybody thinks it's like this crazy revolutionary new thing. Like Michael Jordan selling Gatorade was fucking influencer marketing. Like just the platform has changed. Like let's stop acting like everything is so novel and so crazy. Like it's just, you have something that people connect to, whether it's board shorts and frosted tips, whether it's Michael Jordan, whether it's, you know, hot chicks on Instagram, you name it. Mm-hmm. Literally all you need is something that people connect to, because when they connect to you, what do you have? Attention, which we've talked about a million times. That's all any of this is.
Yep.
The problem is that's just such a moving target all the time that people get confused, and it's easy to get overwhelmed and to get scared about how all this is different from the last time this worked for me. What do I do? Take a deep breath, take a step back, and you just look at it. Like, where's the attention? So like, even like going back to the first influencer question, like how could the Raymores expand on what they're doing with you? Take the same principles that we always talk about and work backwards off of that. So like, what kinds of different groups of people are going to buy kegs of wine? So the, you know, young family living the lake life, boom, Ben Riley checks that box. But who else is? Is it, you know, young people just out of college? Is it, you know, older empty nesters that are big wine drinkers and have a more empty fridge now because the kids are gone? Is it, you know, people that maybe don't know enough about wine yet, and the cider wine fusion series is going to be a little bit, you know, easier for them to tackle because they know they like hard ciders. So you got to kind of start there, and you got to kind of identify each one of those target groups and think, okay, let's pick somebody from each one of those that has a following of similar people and do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Super basic. You know what I mean? Like the same way that we, you know, walked everybody through that Facebook ad for Yankee loving wine drinkers within 20 miles of Canandaigua. You do the same thing, but rather than a Facebook ad, you look at people you know, or people that are huge fans, or longtime customers, or just well-known in the area. And then you say, hey, we did this with this guy, Ben, in Casanova. This is what the setup looked like. Would you be down for that? Mm-hmm. You know, most people probably would be.
Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Did you read about the GaryVee empathy acquisition yesterday?
You're the first guy I thought about.
What did you what article did you read, and what did you first think before I'll give you my thoughts?
I read a bunch of them. Cause I think Gary posted about it. That's where I first saw it. He posted about it, and there was like a link on his Instagram.
Yep.
So I read it there. Honest with you, I was surprised because it's so fast and it's so early. And like, I know that like just watching his stuff, like he pushed that hard, but it didn't seem to me like they had really put their full level of juice behind it yet, right? Which kind of made me think that there was a lot more potential just internally. And like, obviously not knowing the specs of like the Constellation deal, like they could have given them, you know, $100 million for it. Like I wouldn't know, like, you know what I mean? But like, I don't think they did, but just think that it felt early to me, but also not surprising. Just knowing him and knowing his MO and just getting deeper into that ecosystem with people that are kind of experts in it. Like, you know, it makes sense, but still just to have the first of its kind direct to consumer brand and products like that, and to do as much as they did, and just, I forget what the revenues numbers were, but it was just crazy.
It was crazy. And for everybody watching, give you a little context. Gary Vaynerchuk, who we've talked about a lot before, he started a wine brand actually his own wine brand called Empathy Wines. He's huge on empathy, just the word, you know, more compassion, more empathy. And the way he built this, it just started about 18 months ago. They had one kind of a red blend, one white blend, and one rosé style. They just came out with some rosé cans, which I think is freaking brilliant. I think that's exactly where the market is going towards, that single serve portability, boat, golf, you know, wherever it is. But I think it was the model and how they built it. It was the direct to consumer. They built everything through winetext.com. That's the one piece of the puzzle I want to know, how many people were in that database once they did sell the brand to Constellation yesterday. They formalized the branding yesterday. These guys only sold 15,000 cases. Now that sounds like a lot of wine, and it is a lot of wine, but for a startup winery, that's nothing. I mean, it's really not that much. They did about $3.6 million in revenue over the last 18 months, which if you're looking at a traditional beverage model for an acquisition, you're probably looking at anywhere between 8 and 12 times revenue. So if you kind of ballpark that, you're looking at probably a $30 to $35 million deal. Now, on top of that, here's where I think it got very interesting. With the database and the SMS texting platform, I think that's what Constellation actually bought. I think they bought that database. Let's call it 100,000 people that had said, I want to opt in to learn more about GaryVee's wines. Now, it's not just the wine content they were getting. They were getting exclusive texts. They were getting exclusive little videos saying, hey, it's me, Gary. Thanks for buying a bottle of rosé. I think what Constellation did and what they paid for, that could have potentially pushed this to a $75, $100 million deal. I think they're going to use that texting platform of people that have already told them they want to learn more about wine and run every single Constellation brand through that texting platform. They said in one of the articles that I wrote, or that I read, that was one of the biggest pieces of value they saw in the Empathy Wine deal. It was the direct-to-consumer. We do a traditional 3-tiered system. So you have the producer, which is the winery, your traditional distributor, and then your retailer, like your local bottle shop. That's the traditional 3-tiered system. What this brand did, it went from producer to consumer. It cut out 2 layers of the 3-tiered system, which means they kept a lot more of the margin in their pocket. And how they transcribed that to you and me was that they did free shipping because they saved all that money on the front side. So if you buy a bottle of, you know, rosé for $20, he's putting more like $12 in his pocket as opposed to like $4.50 to the traditional model. I think that's where they placed a lot of the value, and I think it's a really, really brilliant strategy on both of their parts.
Well, I mean, and if you break it down too, it's super fucking smart on Constellation's side, because you know, we're living in a world where that's the kind of shit that puts people out of business. You know what I mean? Where like, when people realize that I don't have to go to the liquor store and I can just text my order every Wednesday, and then my bottles are on my doorstep Friday morning. You know, when that moves its way up the chain of like early adopters to like, oh, everybody does it now. Mm-hmm. If a place like Constellation doesn't adapt that, you're going to hit a point pretty quick where like you're needed less and less and less and less. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's like, oh, oops. Whereas like looking at it now, and then especially like obviously having the street cred that guy has, you know, he hasn't been wrong about a lot of stuff in the last 10 to 12 years. So just being in that guy's world and in his ecosystem, period, not a bad move.
Well, and I think, trust me, he's a smart guy. I'm sure he's still the agency of record, creating content and pushing content through an SMS platform. I have a pretty good feeling he's still on record.
Yeah, I think Vayner's doing okay on that deal.
But this goes to the point. That's why I wanted to bring this up on the show. This goes to the point that we're always talking about. It's stay humble, stay creative, observe the market where you're doing business, and don't be afraid to try new stuff. if you see your market potentially going to direct to consumer, I'm working on a project here in Madison County that's doing a lot of the same thing with the farmers. Is if the entire world is going that way, then guess what? You should spend a little bit of time researching if you should go that way too. Traditional markets, traditional distributors, look at our food chain during all of this. Our food chain's getting disrupted. I mean, have you ever thought in your life that Wegmans would be running out of chicken? Like, no. Everything that you ever thought would ever happen is happening right now. And we still haven't even seen the whiplash effect about what's going to happen to these systems after all of this too.
Well, I think the operative word there is like, if you think your industry is moving in that direction, like, spoiler alert, all of them are.
Right.
That's like saying 20 years ago, like, if you think your business is going to need a website, like, right. All of them are. Is it going to be this year? Probably not. It's going to be the next 5, maybe not even then. But like, it's gonna, and it's just one of those things where, like, the earlier you can do it, the more success you're going to have. Like, I just had this conversation yesterday with a client that we were talking, and we're like, hey, like, what are we doing wrong? Like, why is, like, our organic reach on Facebook so much lower in 2020? Because we were looking at Q1 of 20 versus Q1 of 19. And they're like, what are we doing wrong? What did we change? And I'm like, we're not doing anything wrong. Here's 78 articles on how Facebook organic reach is just cut in half if you're lucky, if not more. And it's like, well, why is that? I'm like, because they have an ad platform to push. The less reach you get for free, the more you spend on ads. And like, the same, like, the people that were early to Facebook, they crushed it. And the people that are just, like, think about it, if you create a Facebook business page today and you try to rely on organic reach to do everything, which you could do 10 years ago, you're going to think Facebook's one of the more useless tools in your arsenal.
Yep.
But if you run 10 years ago, you thought it was the best thing ever made, and your business thrived because of it. Like, things like SMS texting or, direct to consumer channels through whatever means, like, it's just here. And I think COVID accelerated that for a lot of people, and it's going to continue to, because, like, I mean, I don't know about you up in Cas, but like, we're seeing it here. Like, even with phase 4 dine-in service opening, like, yeah, people are going out, not as much, and so it's just one of those things where, like, if you relied on, like, person-to-person contact for anything, or like, even like use wine, for example, right? Like, I could have my bottle of wine that I'm drinking Saturday go from producer to distributor to driver to store to stock boy to me to counter to home. Like, you think people are just going to stop thinking that? Because, you know what I mean? So, like, or I can just say, and it shows up. One Lysol wipe, I'm good to go. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be a big chunk of reality, like, that we're looking at. And the people that are going to adopt stuff like that early, they're going to do well.
So my buddy Ben from Skinny Atlas, he says, very true, but a lot of times by the time you see trends, it's too late to change your own business. I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, but I get the gist of what he's asking. So, you and I call this the 80-20 all the time. Mm-hmm. We say, pay your bills with the 80% of the stuff that you do all the time. If Facebook ads and Facebook organic and Instagram ads and Instagram organic are paying your bills, do that, and do that the best of your ability to maximize that 80%. Can you kind of explain for him what you and I talk about, the 20%, and how we kind of identify things and how we're always kind of try new stuff?
Yeah. So I think that, whether we like it or not, that's just part of the responsibility that you accept these days when you decide you want to be a business owner or work for yourself in any way. You are tacitly signing up for the fact that, like, I have to constantly be looking for new trends. I have to constantly be trying them. I have to constantly be working to see if they work for me. Like, it's just true, because you're absolutely right. If you wait until it's not a trend anymore and it's just reality, you lost all of that extra value in between when it is underpriced and it is so new. It's why we've started having TikTok conversations with clients now, so that a year from now, when that is a thing, it's not coming out of left field. That it's the same way that we started talking about Instagram stories a year and a half ago. So now in our new proposal, when that's 40% of the output on Instagram you're getting for us, they know why. And it's just one of those things. And it's tough because, like we talk about all the time, like just running a business day to day is really hard. So to sit there and tell people, hey, good news, you have to do all of that and fix all of the shit that breaks and still try to be a regular human and have a personal life. And oh, by the way, you have to study and research and experiment with tons of new things every week. Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And Ben, this is what that's all great thoughts. This is what I would put on top of that is the 20% that we're always talking about trying new stuff. You need to have zero expectations that any of it is going to work. I mean, Periscope on Twitter was a thing 3-4 years ago. Peach was this evolving brand new network that was going to be the new thing, 3-4 years ago. Snapchat is still a thing, but I don't think it ever kind of took over the way, they thought it was going to. So it's spending those 20% of researching and finding out who the thought leaders are in your space that are super innovative. And I'm not saying you have to be the first one. I'm not even saying you have to be the second one. You just need to be ahead of the majority of people in your industry so that when you get to, when they start skating to where the puck was, you've already passed them. Be that lead guy, be the breakout guy on the ice. Get there first before 90% of them, not from 100% of them, but that's hard. And we find ourselves making excuses, and meaning myself. You find yourself cutting out that 20% because that's the part that's easy to say, I don't have any time. That just means we don't have the priority to put it ahead of the other stuff I want to do when I'm doing those 20%. And I'm not saying you have to stay up till 2:00 in the morning researching articles and watching YouTube videos. I'm not saying any of those things. But the moment, I say this all the time, the moment you catch yourself scrolling, hop over to YouTube and say, how do I make a proper TikTok video? How do I market wine using TikTok? How do I do whatever, how do I sell pizza using TikTok? And watch a 17-minute video. That's all we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a big part of it all goes back to like what your aspirations are. And like if everything maps, like I thought you hit it hard last week. Like when you have the audacity to say, like, I want to do this and I'm going to straight up charge people for my time, like you sure as hell better have invested your time to gain that level of expertise and knowledge where it's worth it. Yep. Like we see it every day. Like we, if we were trying to sling the same stuff today as we were 4 years ago, people would laugh us out of the room, but that's what I decided I want to be. Like, I want to be that guy at the forefront of all of that. Like, okay, cool, hot shot, but now you have to learn all this stuff, and it's not easy, but like, that's where you create value for yourself and where you create value for other people. So it's like, it's just tough. Cause like, you don't want to like scare people, but like our last Pizza Hut in Broome County closed last week. So like everybody kind of gets a little fat and happy sometimes where things are great now and they're thriving. And I'm like, things were great for Pizza Hut. Things were great for Toys R Us. I'm willing to say they were greater than what we're doing now. And like, where are they now? 10 years, 15 years, gone. So like, it's easy to get comfortable with where you're at, but like, that's the other thing. It's no longer kind of that down slope that it was 20 or 30 years ago, where it's going to be kind of a slow burn if you're still spending all of your money on like newspaper and radio ads. It's a cliff now. You're good, and then you're not.
Yep.
So like,
if you're spending money on newspaper and radio ads, and those are crushing for you, like Mazel Tov. Like, hey, great. If you're selling, lawn services, and you have a cutout of a coupon, in a newspaper, and people are redeeming 20 of those a week, we're not forcing anybody to go to Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatever else it is. If your business is currently working, the only reason we do this show is to provide any sort of value to one person that watches at any one point throughout the history of this show. I mean, is that an accurate statement?
100%. You know, and I think just, you know, and on top of it, and that's like the tough part, because everybody's so different and everybody's coming from such different places and such different industries with such different value propositions that it's going to be different for everybody. You know, I think the thing is, and this is just me kind of talking to myself out loud about this, but like sometimes I think we're too easy on people in that regard, where we don't push them enough, where we say, hey, if you're doing okay, keep riding, dude, you're good. But the thing that you have to make sure that you communicate, especially if you're going to be in client services like we are, where we assume some level of responsibility for making sure that they're ready. Mm-hmm. So like the landscaping example was a great one, where like if you're running newspaper ads and that's where you're getting business from, great. But be prepared that if you're doing great in neighborhoods that are predominantly 65 and up, and then they all move south over the course of 18 months, you're going to go from great to struggling in half a season. Mm-hmm. So that you're creating, you're assuming that level of volatility there. And that's what I don't think enough people realize. They don't understand that it is that quick of a drop off, and people are migrating away quicker and quicker and quicker. We're like, I was making fun of my dad on Sunday. Like he'll say that he watches the news all the, like he watches Facebook clips from WBNG on his phone. And it's like, that's like, I'm like, my he'll be 60 in September. Like 60-year-olds are getting their news through here. They're not sitting down watching the 6 o'clock news after dinner anymore. Mm-hmm. So like cool. And like, do you to a certain extent, but like, just be aware of what the world looks like out there.
Well, and that person that buys pizza today may be on Facebook and looking for your Instagram ad, but that incoming freshman coming into Cazenovia College or Lemoyne or BU, you know, they're 16, 17 years old right now. How are you going to market? How are you going to market your pizzeria to that person coming in now? You think that 17-year-old's on Facebook? You know, to your point, that 65-year-old person, you know, I'll give you a perfect example. We have two women on either side of us that live here that are 80 years old. They've used the same company, I'm sure, their same lawn service for as long as we've lived here. We're going on 10 years here in Kaz. But the moment they move and the young family moves in, that the parents are 24, 26, 27 years old, if you want to keep that lawn that probably costs them $60 a week to mow, how are you going to market to that person? So I think, Ben, if you're still watching, I think you still are, not only is the 20% investing into what you're currently doing now, it's an investment into the future. Where's your customer base going? As your customer base ages out and they're maybe not a customer of yours anymore, where are you going to find that new customer, not only to just maybe supplement new business, but the 20% you're going to lose potentially every single year, whether they move away or they pass away or whatever it is. If you lose customers, how are you going to continue to fill that funnel? And I think that is with every industry, honestly, if you're not looking towards that 20%.
Without question. And it's tough. Like we see it all the time, but it's just one of those things where, and I don't think it's even just business, it's with everything. It's just easier to ignore it. And then to make excuses as to why business is dropping off. Like, I think you're seeing it ad nauseum right now. It's so easy to just blame the pandemic for everything, which, like, don't get me wrong, that is fucking shit up for a lot of people. But I think a lot of people are more in control than they think. I think that there's a lot of things that they could do to drastically change their bottom line. It's work, though. And it's easy for the punk 30-year-old kid who's still young with tons of energy to go out there and innovate because that's what he's telling everybody. But when you sit there and you're like, listen, kid, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Like, I'm fucking tired. I don't want to do all that.
You do know that next year on your birthday, it's not going to be the punk 30-year-old anymore. It's going to be the punk mid-30s guy all of a sudden.
I think I'm still early 30s. think 34 starts the mids. I got 2.5 more years, 2+. Listen, I'm psyched about it. Every year I've gotten older since like 26, life has just gotten exponentially better. So I bring it on.
It only gets better. And the only reason it gets better, the biggest unlock, not to get too philosophical, but the biggest unlock I've had in my
deep, you guys.
is the moment you just stop listening to everybody else. And I'm not saying mentors, and I'm not saying business leaders and thought leaders and things like that. The minute you stop thinking, let me rephrase that. The minute you stop caring about what other people think about you, that is the biggest unlock you will ever have in your entire personal or professional career. Because that allows you to do so many things. It allows you to operate freely. It operates to talk about what you want, what you're passionate about, and not have any expectations of other people and or future clients and customers. Because the moment you can do that and simply talk about the things that fire you up, and this is one of the most fun things about this show, is that we talk as if nobody's watching. I know people are watching, and I'm very appreciative of that, but you and I talk as if it's just you and me sitting across the table having a beer. This is why we do this. So for me, that's one of the biggest unlocks, and I encourage anybody that can. It's such a hard lift to get to that point, but the moment you can do it, it's huge. It's huge.
Well, I think that's just where I've been lucky too. Just my stubborn self. I got to flip that switch a lot earlier than I think a lot of people did. But you're 100% right. But it is weird. I was talking about it with one of my buddies like last week. When we started the first business, I was 22 years old, and we had one partner that was 31. So all of us were either like 22 or 23, and then he was 31, and he seemed so old. And we were sitting here last night, and or not last night, it was last week or week before, and we're like, holy shit, we're as old now as Brocious was, if you're watching, bro, when we started this. Like, can you fucking believe that? And I was rattled for a second, because that's tough. But he also was like married with 2 kids by the time he was like 28, so we're not exactly the same in that regard. But
happens fast, man. I tell you. All right, let's do this. Let's do last call for questions on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you, everybody. Kevin, Ben, Jackie, Ed, Brian, Jimmy, Meg, Kevin. Wow, again, awesome. I hope everybody has a good weekend. I hope what doesn't happen this weekend is because there aren't many community fireworks things. I hope y'all keep your fingers. Don't be stupid. Don't, just because there's not huge fireworks over Cazenovia Lake this weekend, like, can we please just not see people in the ER this weekend? That's one of the things I'm really hoping we don't see.
Yo, we had some people going hard all week. Right out my window. It's kind of nice, actually.
Out your business window or out
no,
of your
my apartment window right over here. They had a nice chat with Binghamton's finest right after, but
just be careful. That's all we ask. I'm actually weirdly, I'm actually looking forward to this style of 4th of July. I'm not a big fireworks guy to begin with. To be honest with you, I'm not a big crowd guy anyway. Like, not to get too deep, but call me a child of 9/11. I find myself like even walking into like a crowded movie theater, or, again, I won't get too deep, but with that, and even like the Carrier Dome, I remember walking in a few times and being like, man, if something happens, like I had to like locate the exits, like one of those kind of things. So I just, I'm fine with not having the fireworks, not having 500 people kind of in our little corner of Cazenovia Lake. I'm totally cool just chilling with some friends starting tonight on the boat and just knocking a few back when we get off the boat. I'm totally cool with it.
I am too. I think that's kind of the nice part about where we're at down at the lake. It's kind of a nice mix of both, where it's, there's like a lot of people down there, but it's pretty spread out and it's still like pretty quiet. I mean, we'll see about Saturday, but it's just I don't know, man. I just think that it's just, we're still just in such a weird time where nothing really feels real or normal at all. So I'm very curious to see kind of how it shakes out. I don't really know what to expect, but I think mainly people are just kind of, I don't know. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I think it'll be good.
I think when we come out of this and we have a normal 4th of July like next year, hopefully, if it's next year, if 4th of July is like your favorite holiday, it's a great holiday. It's not my favorite holiday by any stretch, but if we go back and have like a normal, well, we had a normal Christmas. Like if this continues and we like don't have like a normal Thanksgiving or a normal Christmas, I just think that whatever next year of holidays and or experiences, or the first time you can go back and pick apples for the first time, or the first time you can go to the football game for the first time, or whatever it is that you're into that you want to do, I think it's just we're going to gain a huge appreciation because it was taken away. And I know that's cliche and I know it's easy to say, but I think we will. I really do. But I think, I want to document as much during this time because I do want to go back and look at it, because I think that's part of the, like you always say, it's always good to have it and not need it versus the other way. To be able to go back and appreciate this, to say, hey, remember when the kids were 14 and 12 and we lost all spring sports and we probably lost all fall sports and we lost all summer sports, but we spent a lot of time together. Like, yeah, that was a pretty dope time, and that's an okay thing to do.
It just feels like the power's been out for 4 months. You know what I mean? Like when the power goes out, you can't really do anything. There's no TV, there's no video games. You're just stuck like hanging out with each other for like a few hours. That's what like the last 4 months feels like.
I will show you what that looks like when you unplug the Wi-Fi with 2 teenagers upstairs. You do not. That's the one thing you do not want to see.
Film it if you do, just for evidence.
All right, if that is it on Facebook and Instagram, we're gonna cut it there. We're both slowly downshifting, I think is a fair way to say it. So, hey man, have a great 4th, everybody. Jimmy Judson, thanks for checking in as always at the end there. Everybody have a happy, please have a safe 4th, and we'll get back with you guys next week. Cheers, everybody.
Go up to Monday. Boom, Jeff.
All right, ending live video.